Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. Welcome back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have with me today Chris Templeton. Chris, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
It is absolutely my pleasure to be able to demonstrate what I want to help people to do so much more effectively than they are. This is
So,
one of the way.
Chris, I first have to start off by acknowledging we are actually close to the same age. So, I really get to talk to people near my own age. So, that's going to be fun. And what I want people to understand by that comment is it really doesn't matter what your age is. You can bring new strategies, new techniques, new ideas, new innovations. You are only limited by your imagination. And when you and I chatted the first time to prepare for this podcast, I got that real sense from you. Let's have some fun and tell us a little bit about your professional background because it's incredibly intriguing to me.
Thank you. I guess probably the best place to start is in the late 80s. I started a little computer consulting firm, and then in the early 90s, went to a large insurance and financial services agency as a marketing consultant. And I really focused on how to help agents and managers to do a better job of creating solid relationships with their clients. We are incredibly good at getting that first sale, and then we don't have the tendency to kind of keep that relationship good and strong. And I thought what I recognized is how much business we were walking by. So I did that for 5 years, and then I opened in 2003 my business, which is now currently called Influence Spotlights. And all of it is around how do I help my clients to create the best relationships they can with their customers. And one of the ways that that came about in terms of having a much better understanding about the capability that everybody carries around with them is I started doing a radio show for our local chamber. Every Friday, I'd interview three businesses or a combination of businesses and nonprofits. And Tom, people would walk in there so nervous. You could just hear almost what was going on inside of their head in terms of, I don't hope I don't blow it because it's going to be live. And I don't like the sound of my voice. You kind of, as a host, you kind of translate the nervousness into the story that was going on in their head. And what would happen is they would walk out blown away by their ability to articulate with passion what they do in their jobs or in their nonprofit. I think about for myself how hard it is to do something like write a marketing piece or write a newsletter, and to be able to sit in front of these people and just ask the right questions, create that environment where that little voice in their head got quiet. Oh my God, what people can talk about so eloquently. And it really got me focused on, hey, how do I help people to create that in their business on a day-to-day basis? So that's what I've been doing for about the last 10 years and really enjoying it.
Chris, one of the things that you really advocate and articulate is the power of video. And I am a huge proponent in personal branding. And I generally take it to the audio through the audio format, but you use the video format. So could I maybe start with why do you find video so powerful literally in 2024?
There, I guess you got to start with kind of where we are overall on the planet. I mean, we are so disconnected from each other in terms of we feel like a number when we're dealing with a business, whether it's our cell phone carrier or cable, whatever the case is. And then think about all the outreach that we get on LinkedIn, on email, and it all just feels inauthentic. Feels, oh, here comes just another. And when you take that environment and you turn it around and go, wait a minute, I can take advantage of this. And for me, video is such a fabulous way. Once you get comfortable with being in front of this camera and it doesn't take as long as you think it's going to take, you're a perfect example, Tom. I met you at C-Suite. You did a fabulous presentation, and I sent you a quick video. Hey, Tom, it was really great to get to hear your presentation. I found it really helpful. And so you're communicating at a level that there's not that, gee, I wonder what he meant by that, or I wonder if this is just a veiled sales pitch, that sort of thing. So I'm a huge proponent of video, number one, because I think it's a great way to connect with clients and prospects. And then I also just feel like the value of it is they get to see me for who I am, how I operate. And audio is certainly not bad. It's the next best thing. But I am a huge proponent of, if you're going to do a podcast, if you're going to do a webinar, it's absolutely essential that those go out on audio only platforms. But I sure think they ought to be accompanied by a video on YouTube or whatever the case may be. Does that make sense to you?
What I heard was authenticity. Would that be a fair assessment?
Oh man, I'm all about that. I want to help people to be so comfortable that when somebody sees a video that they've created and sent in an email or put up on LinkedIn, that somebody goes, I know who that person is at some level that's much deeper than I'm used to getting from, hey, would you like to chat about our product? So yeah, authenticity, huge.
You even go so far as to suggest a simple video can be not an alternative to an email, but actually better than an email. Could you explain that or explore that a little bit for us, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I do a lot, I've probably done 1,000 of them in the uh, last couple of years, is whenever I can, I send video instead of a written email. I'll send an email. Hey, Tom, just wanted to shoot you a quick video. Click here and you can see it. And it's just so unusual right now. It's unique. And when you think about what is your value add, what do you bring to the table? If I'm bringing a personal touch that most people don't, what a fabulous way to set myself apart from the competition in a genuine way. So that's what I recommend. I do it all the time and have come to rely on. And the thing is, the feedback I get is just over the top. People are, "Oh, thank you. That was so cool. Wow, that was great. I sure appreciate it." It's just I'll just take a step back if I can and just say, I one of the things that I love is talking to people I know, and I'm not at all good at talking to people I don't know. This great way, especially when I'm introducing somebody, to be myself and to have the feeling that, "Oh, man, this guy took the time to reach out to me in a way that is so unusual and yet so authentic."
Chris, what are some of the tips you might suggest for an individual getting better in front of the camera?
The first thing is to make it a practice. I think of pro athletes, and I'm a fan of the Warriors and Steph Curry or LeBron James. Those guys are never satisfied with where they are. And so I think number one is to practice with friends. Send a video to colleagues so that you start to get comfortable with this idea of talking to a camera, because at first it's so alien, right? And I used to look at newscasts. How can they look at that camera and keep on talking? I'd be so distracted. That's all a function of practice. So that's the first thing. The other things that I think are important are doing your best not to distract your audience, whether it's a person on the other end of an email, whether it's people in a podcast. So I have a tendency to want to minimize what's in the background. I want to just take my time and just relax into it and lighten up. Also, the beauty of video is I can do multiple takes. And when you think about, I think we have this tendency to think, oh my God, I had to do 3 takes. What do you think actors have to do when they're making a movie? I mean, you hear stories about 20, 30 takes, and you're never going to be that bad. And you're always going to get better and better. And be light about it. Have fun with those mistakes. Use them as a little blooper on the end of an email, and you get people smiling. You get people appreciating that you're not perfect, and you give yourself the room to just lighten up, man, oh man, it'll make a huge difference in how you approach what you're doing with these types of videos.
So how can a video actually enhance the sales process? Because yeah, I'll go with that.
One of the things that I'm really working on with clients is recognizing kind of a standard sales process. We get somebody into the funnel, they're a lead. They hopefully at some point a salesperson talks to them, to this prospect, and hopefully at some point the prospect buys. There is so much you can do to strengthen the sales process by simply having interviews. Video interviews is my preference, of stakeholders in the business that, that are trying to sell to this person. I want to hear from the CEO. Hey, I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased you're considering purchasing our product. And I just want you to know right from the top, this is how we operate and how important what we do is in terms of making our clients happy. If you had three or four of those videos for your salespeople, can you imagine how much more productive their process would be? And the thing is, Tom, all that it takes is for each of the people that we're going to interview. So say it's a CEO, a project manager, and maybe the head of sales. I don't know. And they have three or four bullet points that they're going to talk about. And all that we do, just like you and I are doing right now, is I ask questions and bring out clarifications. Then I take myself out of the video. And now what I've got is a sales guy who's armed with three or four or five videos that they can send over time to help to create that. Remember, marketing, I used to say this all the time, marketing equals relationship. How do I connect with my potential client, or even more importantly, my existing clients, in a way where they feel like I'm there and they're on their behalf. Does that make sense?
Is there a suggested length? Should this be like a teaser intro? Should this be a substantive several minute discussion, or perhaps something else?
I don't think there's a one size fits all for everybody, but typically I think that if I can get 5 to 10 minutes of good information and I can put a couple of teasers at the front of the video, two or three important things that the CEO says, and then run the rest of the video, what I do is I get the ability to kind of hook somebody to want to watch the rest of the video. And then I think it's okay for it to be 5 to 10 minutes long. I used to do marketing for pharmaceutical, and it was a EpiPen brand. And so one of the things that people all said, oh, the videos need to be short. If I'm somebody who's considering purchasing something from you and you send me a 5 or 10 minute video, I'm far more likely to look at that than if it's you send me a video about real estate and I'm not in the market. So I think you can have more than right now. There's a very big focus in social on videos that are a minute or less. I don't think that would serve most people in helping them in a sales role. It has to be substantive, but it can't be fluff.
Then how do I take those same concepts and move from a sales focus to being a true thought leader in an area?
Obviously, you can do it by being and doing what you've done so successfully in terms of podcasting. But the other thing that a lot of people are doing, and it makes so much sense, is being a podcast guest. Get yourself a one pager about who you are and what you bring to the table, and go out and get on other podcasts where you're increasing your exposure and you're talking about things that are important to the podcast that you're on and the audience that is listening. Additionally, I think it's really important with existing clients to make sure that they're getting regular updates about what's going on in the industry that I represent as the company that sold you this product. Hey, here's what's new, letting people know what's new in the business. Hey, wanted to let you know that we've added a new project manager and we're really excited about this new product. All of those kinds of things can be done so easily with a little bit of help and a little bit of practice and yet we walk right by them. And I heard a story the other day from a woman who helps businesses by helping them to create gifts for their clients. And she told me a story about a tractor tire company where a guy came in, he looked at everybody in the last 3 years that were customers that had not been contacted, and he just did the gifting idea. They did $6 million of tractor tires his first year. So for me, I look at this and I go, oh my gosh, we are walking by so much business. And you want to be a thought leader? Talk to your people, talk to your customers about what's important in terms of what your company represents.
Chris, many of the listeners to this podcast are in the corporate world in the regulatory compliance field. They may be chief compliance officers, they may be in the compliance function. And the customer base for a corporate compliance function are their company's employees. Would the strategies, tactics, and techniques you've described so far work for a corporate compliance officer who's trying to provide meaningful ongoing engagement with employees?
Let me tell you, it would work a whole lot better than not doing it. I was at a large financial company in the early 90s when compliance came knocking on their door after a sister company had all kinds of agents misbehaving. And when you look at what you're trying to do, think about, and I've known hundreds of agents that have had to deal with compliance. They complain all the time about what they have to do to stay in compliance, don't they? They don't like it. They don't understand it. These are salespeople who don't want to be bothered by these things. And for me, I think the thing that a compliance officer can do is have a conversation with another salesperson, with somebody like myself, where what we're doing is we're taking what those rules are and helping people to reframe how they think about them in a way that serves them. I mean, do you know anybody that sells a product that has compliance that loves the compliance department? But when we take the time to help them to understand what and why we're doing and how we're changing and how we're growing and how we're adapting, all of those things can make a huge difference on how the people that are at the front lines dealing with the rules of compliance are going to behave and how they're going to frame it up with the customer. I think about the people that said, I've got to do this because of compliance. Oh, that's not the way that we want to frame business. Hey, we have compliance rules. It's to protect you. We want you to understand that we're here to protect you and to make sure that we're doing everything by the book. There's always going to be somebody who's going to push the limits. So having those kinds of conversations for your sales force and for the people that have to implement these compliance rules is, I think it's critical and can make a huge difference in how compliance is perceived and how salespeople operate out in the front lines of sales.
Chris, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted any more information about any of the topics you brought up about yourself or to connect with you, what would be the best place for them to go or best method to connect with you?
The best way is to go to influencespotlights.com. That's my website. You can find out about what we do, the different use cases, that sort of thing. And I'm easy to reach either via a contact form or my phone, which is cell. So it's voice and text. I'm available and I'm always happy to set up a trial interview with you. You can see on my website, it says book your free 15-minute interview right now. And I'm happy to do that with any of your listeners.
Well, Chris, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with me, and I hope we can continue this conversation.
I would sure like that, Tom. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.